Welcome. Today we're going to talk about Deep Work by Mr. Newport. It's actually my third reading of the book, so I'm not going to do a review. I'll link to like a long written review down below, but I don't think I have a video long review. It was like a 6,000 word epic a long time ago. So I'm not going to go over a full review, but I am going to talk about just a few highlights, a few things that I thought were important kind of moving forward that relate to even some of my other reading recently. Now, before we do that, though, I want to let you know a few ways you can support the channel. Number one is by going to Patreon and supporting the channel at patreon.com/CurtisMcHale. Number two would be going to Skillshare and taking my course on Tick, watch my upcoming course on time blocking, and my upcoming course on Things 3. You can find that by going to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare. Buckle up. On page 88 of the book, Newport says that Descartes helped us lose the reliance on, or brought us radical individualism and helped us lose the reliance on spirituality, thinking in that way as our source of meaning. And he says that craftsmen then moved into their craft as a way of finding meaning, as a way of finding something outside themselves. Their second mountain, if you wanted to go by David Brooks out of The Second Mountain. And really this leaves a gap in finding meaning for a lot of people because they don't have, even going farther in today, loss of a lot of traditional values, a lot of traditional things like faith is probably the easiest one to fall at. Making it harder to find meaning for many people past themselves, past like just the initial, let's say, gratification of themselves or the financial security, stuff like that. Once you get to that point, like, where do you go to find good meaning next? And some of the good stuff that I guess tradition has done is provide a path to finding meaning past those initial things. Now, one of the faults I see, if we look at the case against education, is that we try to fill some of this meaning, some of this like searching for it with education, with other things in society, and ultimately they're failing us right now. And so where do you go? Like when you're told to run this race of education so that you can have security, so that you can have, move into your second mountain again, to use David Brooks' term, where do you go after that when it fails? When you find the races run farther than you can run because you just don't have the money? When you find that the jobs are not actually there, where do you go? And this is where I really see, and I've come back to a few times now, and you can see when you can't find that meaning that you start looking for it somewhere else. And this is where I think we see a lot of white dudes going to incel groups, going to racist groups, because they're looking for meaning outside themselves. And this one seems easy because it makes the problems that they're seeing in their lives not their fault. And humans are excellent at abdicating responsibility for their own problems. They're excellent at, actually, I was thinking that today when I read next book up is Misogyny, Brief History of Misogyny by Jack Holland. I was thinking in there as they talked about like a woman being at fault for being raped, and that's not the man's fault, but because she was, displayed herself, sometimes just showed off her hair. And that, no, and it's terrible, clearly, but it also abdicates any responsibility men have in controlling themselves. And it's not their fault because they're men, just seems ridiculous. Abdicates and continues to infantilize men. And going back to if Cal Newport is right, saying that, starting with Descartes, we kind of lost this, spirituality or this metaphysical being, this metaphysical thinking as our source of meaning, then, as we step through some of the other reading we've done recently, Case Against Education, Man's Search for Meaning, again, I continue to see how we get men, and again, I do not condone anything they do, into incel groups, into this racism, into protesting, basically against human rights for Black people. That's what they're doing for people of color. And I can see it, and I don't have a solution to how do you teach men, because this is like misogyny. This is totally a problem with white men. This is white men's problem. And terribly, other people pay for it, right? Women pay for it, people of color pay for it, not white men. One of the other points, kind of totally changing gears here, is that the value of knowledge work is really hard to measure. And Newport looks at this and says that because it's hard to measure, it's easy to fall into focus destroying traps, right? The open office. He cites a lot in this book. Or managers play task hot potato. This is something he's actually said in a recent podcast. He didn't actually say it in the book, where they get a task in and they hot potato it off to the next person because then they don't have to deal with it anymore. But it's focus destroying. And because we don't have a good measure of what knowledge work really entails and the value it provides, we don't think about the cost. He calls it the metric black hole. That all of these focus destroying tasks, the distractions, really cost us in our work. This also made me think of why it's so easy in knowledge work settings. I say even YouTube, right? I do a lot of thinking and talking about what I'm thinking about. Being an author, those type of things, it's very easy to fall into the cacophony of voices that are telling us that shallow work is important in these fields. Right? I've taken I read a bunch of books on like being an author, and I've taken one expensive course, and it came down to produce a lot of stuff fast. And here's, had some okay writing tips in it, and do a bunch of social media to keep yourself like marketed as an Amazon top seller. That was really it. Right, here's a tactic to, make it free at first and get pre-orders and then, bump up the price after, and then you can earn some money. And do this a bunch of times and people will follow you. And then you'll make money. And when you really look at, the person who did that course, and there's actually a book, was it The Book in a Box Method, I think I just read? Or no, sorry, Scribe, by the same author. That basically came down to the same thing. It's looking at them, they had some best-selling books, but most of their income seems to very clearly be made from selling these books and selling this consulting and these courses, which tell us to dive into shallow work. And it's not like, you don't see Malcolm Gladwell, you don't see Cal Newport teaching author courses and video courses, right? It's people who are kind of on the second tier. They had maybe a very popular book. They maybe hit even the New York Times bestseller list and but they're not like the public intellectual that continues to have people, go after them. You may not even recognize the name. In fact, I looked at the name, I was like, that's got to be a pen name. And no, it's really just, it was some, I've heard the name was like, that's like, it felt to me like the most American name ever, but I don't know. So I guess my question there is, how do we fall into, or how do we keep ourselves from falling into those traps of aiming for shallow work as important, right? I've been able to dodge it on Facebook now and on Instagram now, where I don't feel a desire to go use them. They are attention traps. They are in Facebook specifically vile. Vile, threatening democracy the world over, especially in America. Although I have a hard time making this move with Twitter, with getting away from that. I don't think it has some of the problems, but I don't think it's perfect either. Then finally, one of the big ones I thought is, what is your H index? So an H index in academic circles is basically how influential your papers were and how the awards, and the awards you've won kind of combined into one number. And the higher your H index, the more influential you are. So you can build a fairly good academic career just by focusing on building your H index, right? I think he said 40 was good. 40 was really high. But that also made me think, what is the H index for YouTube, for writing books, for blogging? What is that H index that if you just focus on that number alone, on that metric alone, you can forget about the rest of it. You can forget about the shallow work. I think that is the problem with, again, knowledge work being hard to identify. It's hard to identify that H index. And since it's not, I don't work in an academic field, it's hard to really know what I focus on besides that. Besides, the shallow work, which is, busyness for busy sake sometimes. And how do I show that, or what metric do I use that is going to be doing a better job at saying I'm successful regardless of the amount of shallow work I've done? That's a hard question I don't have. So if you have an H index answer, then, let me know. I don't think it's like YouTube viewers. I don't think it's, visitors to my site, which I don't even track. I have no statistics on my site. I took them off a year ago, and it was excellent to not feel like I need to check it all the time or not to gauge my content on that. So what is the H index, right? Is it money? Maybe. Maybe at a certain point it needs to be money, I suppose, so that you can tell, so that you can feed your family. But outside of that, what is it? And that's probably the only thing that I think I could use statistics for on my site, is seeing who's linking back to me. Outside of that, or where traffic is coming from elsewhere, and that kind of could build up your H index. Google PageRank, is that it? I don't know. I don't know. But ultimately, we're going to get to my final question: is should you read deep work? And I've clearly read it 3 times, so I think the answer is yes. You should read deep work. I have pulled different insights out of it each time. I've read it twice on Kindle, once physically, and then once using my Zettelkasten and reading methods. I'm not sure that I'll read it again, but I have continued to find it to be excellent. When I first read it, it was like blow my mind book that I have it's been saying everything I've been thinking for the last few years around focus and around how I should conduct my work. And I still think that it sits in that category. And I find it continually has just new insights as I read other stuff that will connect with it. That's it. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, thumbs up below. If you loved it, subscribe, hit the bell. And if you want to support the channel, you can go to patreon.com/CurtisMcHale to support the channel, or you can go to curtismchale.ca/Skillshare, where you can take my course on Tick, watch my upcoming course on time blocking. I actually finished the script for it last week. And you can watch my upcoming course on Things 3, and we'll be releasing parts of that over the next few weeks, just as videos, which you probably have already seen some of them on Things 3. And that'll all be into a Skillshare course, hopefully before Christmas. Have an excellent day.